Yeah, first of all, team news, Heung-min Song. What likelihood that he'll feature tomorrow night?
Yeah, no, he won't feature tomorrow night. He's still he's out training, but he's still separate from the group. So he's improving, and hopefully we can get him back in sooner rather than later.
They're a really attack-minded team, Bodo Glimt. You've had experience of playing them twice before with Celtic. What are you expecting from them?
Yeah, no, they've been pretty consistent the last few years. Obviously, the same manager and sort of core group of players, but definitely a distinct style of football that they've stuck to and have had success with. They've been pretty consistent in obviously in the Norwegian league, but also in Europe. Every game they've played, irrespective of the opposition, they've played some really good quality opposition in Europe. They've always been really competitive, and I think that's just born from the fact that they're very stable and have a clear sort of understanding of how they play their football. So it'll be a good challenge for us.
And a new contract for Lucas Bergvall this week. I mean, how much has he improved just in this season, and also kind of how important is it to the club to build the future of the club around players like that?
Yeah, hugely so. I'm delighted for Lucas. I think it's it's reward for his, like I said, his development this year, his performances, and how well he's adapted. We've got to remember a lot of young guys who maybe come to the Premier League have a step in between, whether that's playing, in another league, but he's sort of come straight from the Swedish league, a really year of senior football into Premier League, and yeah, his growth's been, it's a credit to him. He's worked really hard at his game. At the beginnings, he was really struggling to cope with a lot of the intensity and tempo, as you'd expect and we expected. I guess, a lot about football and life in general is opportunity. And he had an opportunity this year because of, the situation we were in, and he grabbed it with both hands. And then, even now that we've literally got a full squad to choose from, he's still being selected because he took the opportunity. And yeah, you're right. I think there's a core group of young players here that hopefully we can build something from.
This is very much if the club can get through the next two legs, but the club have been looking at trying to get the Aston Villa game moved next month. We see kind of foreign leagues often switch around fixtures to help out teams in European competition. Is this something that the Premier League kind of really has to help out on this occasion with?
Look, I haven't looked too deeply into it. I don't know what sort of precedence there is to it. Like I said, I know other leagues obviously do it, which you can't understand for European finals, but I'll leave that to the powers that be. I'll concentrate on trying to get us there first of all.
And
well done on the marathon, mate. Congratulations. Well done.
The club have worked with the Tottenham fan group tomorrow to put on a tifo display, and there'll be flags throughout the stadium as well. I know the fans haven't always felt aligned with the club at times this season, but how important is that kind of togetherness for such a big night?
Yeah, really important. And again, whoever of you guys have travelled throughout Europe with us, whether this year or other years, you see the impact that has. When you play in opposition stadiums, when the supporter base, really feels engaged with, with the club and with the team and with the occasion. And it's going to be hugely important for us tomorrow night. Our fans in Frankfurt were outstanding, and to be fair, in Europe this year, all the European games, even the Frankfurt, the first home game, I thought was a fantastic atmosphere. And we're going to need it tomorrow night. Again, it's a semi-final of European competition. I'm sure our supporters are excited. Everyone at the club's excited, and we want to make sure we get the best chance to perform at the best level so we can get through.
Hi, Ange. Are you superstitious?
No, I used to be, but not anymore. I find it was kind of worked against everything else I kind of believe in my life because, I never used to change, socks. And then I thought, geez, if it's just the socks, what am I doing? What's the point of me being a coach if it's just socks that make a difference? No, I'm not, mate. Sorry.
I ask because last time Tottenham won a European trophy, Liverpool were champions, but the manager also left at the end of that season. Do you?
Jeez, wow.
Does that give you encouragement or not encouragement?
It's a hell of a way to frame that question, Matt. Look, I said before, and I get we're trying to run two parallel things here of a really disappointing season in terms of the league. But I just don't think that we can do anything other than really concentrate on an unbelievable opportunity we got before us. I just think, irrespective of what kind of season you have, how often will you be in this position? History tells you not that often, irrespective of how strong you are as a club, even the strongest clubs in terms of Europe. So any thought of what's going to happen next year or what's happened this year, or I just don't think is really of any importance. And you know, as I said last week, I think you ask any Tottenham supporter, you know, what's further most in their mind right now, you know, what's going to happen next year, or us hopefully trying to get to a final of Europe and the opportunity to win some silverware. I think the answer would be just concentrate on the now, and that's what I'm doing.
Tom.
Hey, Ange, that game against Bodo with Celtic was a few years ago. Is there anything you can learn from those particular games? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, same manager, similar style of play. You know, when we played them with Celtic, we'd sort of, our season had got off to a slow start, but by that time we'd kind of were playing some decent football. But I remember, because again we had the first game at home, a bit like us, and their ability to play at a really good intensity. They weren't phased. You know, the atmosphere at Celtic Park is unbelievable. They weren't phased by that. Yeah, they'd beaten Roma, you know, a couple of weeks before that, and it really strikes you that I don't think they're going to be daunted by anything tomorrow that they face, because you know they've been at Old Trafford, they've played at the Emirates I think a couple of years ago. You know, like I said, they've played some big clubs in Italy, they've played some big clubs in other countries, and you see that they have this ability to not be fazed by that, and we've got to expect that tomorrow night. I don't expect them to be overawed by the occasion, or you know, sort of thinking, wow. I think you know they've got a real capacity to be really strong in their mind about what they need to do, and the away game's tricky because you know you're playing in an artificial surface, difficult conditions. So I think there are still some real parallels there, and having experienced it, I know that you know they're going to be a really tough opponent.
And just throughout this season, when it's been difficult in the league, you've constantly said to the players, you've said to the players that they can still have a fantastic finish, and you're now 2 ties away from a final. What's been your message to the players this week? You know, last week you talked about the Stonecutters Creed. Any particular kind of angeisms ahead of this week?
No, and that wasn't an angeism. I'm still shocked that the whole room I was talking to had never heard of it before. But no, look, I think that still rings true. Like I said, I'm really strong at the moment on these. Like I said, these parallel worlds we're trying to traverse, and I've sensed, which is not surprising because I've said that before, that the way this club's perceived, that people are almost trying to diminish it in some respects. You know, I've heard people say, well, it's the equivalent of Man United winning the FA Cup. No, it ain't. I'm sorry. Not on any planet is it the equivalent. Others suggesting that maybe we're not worthy of, Champions League. I mean, again, they're like things that are there, designed there to diminish what's ahead of us, which is an unbelievable opportunity. Like I said, irrespective of how this season's gone, we have generations of fans who, want this more than anything else, to share again with the people that they love, a special moment supporting their football club. So, as I said, this season could have gone a lot differently, and we could be flying in the league, but it wouldn't make this opportunity any different. The opportunity is the same. And I've made that clear to the players. We're disappointed, obviously, with Sunday at Liverpool. We were nowhere near the level we needed to be. But again, that's something we need to deal with separately. What we have before us is a semi-final of a European competition with an opportunity to get to a final, win a trophy, and Champions League football. I just think. For the players and everyone involved at the football club, it's a brilliant opportunity.
Jack.
Hi, Ange. How do you assess the players' ability to really go through the gears physically tomorrow night after managing minutes and rotating a bit in recent weeks?
I think we're in a good place from that point of view. I think looking at the outputs of the players, I think we've got really good sort of work into players who needed it. Others we've had to manage because, I think with a season like ours where guys like Romero and Van der Ven and Destiny, guys who've missed a lot of the season, it's not just about getting them back, but then you've got to manage how you bring them back and how and when they play. They certainly, all of the guys we rested on the weekend, Bentancur, they all could have played Pedro on the weekend for sure, but it made sense for us to give them a really good preparation. So, and the guys who played, Don played 60, Matters played 45. I think they're in a good place physically, absolutely. We're going to need a big physical performance because, again, Bodo worked really hard as a team. But similarly to the Frankfurt games, I think the guys are, from a physical standpoint, in a good place to have a strong performance.
And do you feel like, given the unique conditions you're going to face in Norway next week, obviously no more away goals rule anymore, there's an incentive to try and give yourselves a good cushion in that first leg?
I think you try and do that anyway. I think, playing home in Europe, for every club has its advantages, and you want to try and take that advantage. And as you said, Bodo away is a difficult challenge. But having said that, we played really well against Frankfurt at home, and we should have won by 3 or 4. We ended up drawing, but the important thing was that we played really well and were dominant. I think that gave us confidence. And Frankfurt away wasn't an easy. Their record's just as compelling as Bodo. So I think tomorrow night, what's really important is we put in another dominant performance. Hopefully, if we create as many chances this time, they go in rather than sort of hitting crossbars and so forth. But I don't think you just go into tomorrow night thinking you're going to kill off the tie. Then I just don't think. I think semi-finals, for the most part, tend to be pretty tight, and I expect that tomorrow night.
For Bodo Glimt, this is an adventure. They are a small club, but for you, you're a bigger club. The last chance to get something from this season. How does that affect you mentally going into these games?
Yeah, you'd love us to think that you're a small club and we don't rate. No, that's not how I've just said. I think Bodo's there on merit. They beat Lazio in the last. They beat Olympiacos, tough teams. They're there because they're a good football team. Doesn't matter where you come from. I come from the other side of the world, where football is the fourth sport. So I don't underestimate anything. You say we're a big club, they're a small club, doesn't matter. We're 2 clubs in the semi-final of a European competition, and they've earned the right to be there. They've done very well to get there, and we're going to treat them with the respect they deserve. And at the same time, make sure that we go in there and give our best performance.
What do you see as the main reason that Bodo Glimt has reached this stage?
As I said, I think they've been a real stable club, same manager, and I think they've got a real clear identity in the way they play. And as I said, I think they've created a real kind of resilience in the group, mental resilience, that irrespective of who they play, whether that's in the Norwegian League or in Champions League qualifiers or Europa or the conference, they treat every opponent the same and they play at the same level, and I think that's why they've been a dangerous opponent for any team.
Hi, Eirik from TV2 Norway. In addition to that, you've been to Bodo. It was during the winter. It's such a small town. That's a fact. What does it tell you that a team from such a small place are playing in a semi-final in the European Cup?
It's what I love about the game. That's the beauty of football. That irrespective of where you come from or the size of the place you come from, that if you're ambitious and if you have a clear plan, and you can, especially in our sport, you can create unique opportunities and create fantastic moments. So I think that's what we love about the game. That's what we love about football. That there's always been stories of whether it's clubs from small areas or small countries doing well in major competitions. That's always existed.
The Bodo Glimt coach, Kjetil Knutsen, what is your impression of his style of football and him as a person? Yeah,
good guy. Like I said, I obviously met him a few years back, and good guy, and he's done really well with him. Like I said, he's had a real clear identity about the way he wants his team to play. He's created a real strong culture at the club, I think, not just from a football perspective, but from a mental perspective as well. And you see that, and he's done very well, and I look forward to seeing him tomorrow night.
So we won't see a replay of the Mourinho clash when you meet Kjetil at the sideline tomorrow.
I'm a bit different to Jose, yes. But look, I think that's the kind of results they've had in the past. It means you have to respect them. You have to respect. This is not just a one-off. That was 4 years ago, and every year they've done that to more than one club that supposedly are bigger. So this is not a unique. They've gone further obviously this year, and they've earned it. Like I said, even to get to the knockout stage, Olympiacos are a tough team. I mean, they won the Conference League last year. Lazio, we know, are a good side, so they're not there by accident.
One thing is the results, but also the way they have played and done it. It must be something that warms your heart with your playing style.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love their approach. I love that they're not, intimidated by oppositions. I love the fact that they take the game and to whoever the opponent is, and look forward to the challenge.
Final question, please.
Hi, Ange. Adrian Netovisen in Norway. You might say no, but after facing those big clubs like Olympiacos, Lazio, are you by any chance surprised by Bodo getting that far? Because I know you won't mention the small club and small resources, but it's from a city that small. Are you surprised going to the semi-final in the Europa League?
No, like I said, I'm not, because if this was, the first year they got results like that, then you'd say, I'm a bit surprised. But I think they've been building towards that. Like every year they've made an impact in Europe. Maybe they haven't got as far as, but I think, like anything else, it's only been, in recent years that they've got into Europe. And I think in Europe, the more you're in there every year, the more you get the chance to grow. And I think they've grown every year. So I think, it's not a surprise to me. And I think irrespective of how it goes this year, I expect them next year as well to have another impact in whatever competition they be. That they may get through the Champions League qualifiers next year and get to the Champions League. That wouldn't surprise me either, because I've just seen their growth.
Last one. They're coming into this match with a lot of injuries. How do you think that will affect them? Maybe especially missing Patrick Berg in the midfield.
Yeah, look, obviously, missing Patrick Berg is a loss for them. But again, I think it's always been more about what they do as a team rather than the individuals. Because the other thing, over the last 5 years, they've sold a lot of players as well. But the team's always remained consistent. I think, irrespective of the lineup tomorrow, we expect them to play the same way and to be just as hard to beat.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.